Well, real estate transactions can be tricky even with the simplest of scenarios. But when other variables come into play, divorce, for example, it can get complicated fast, especially in today's market. So our real estate expert, Bryan Garrity, has stepped in once again today to talk about this specific case and then generally the condition of the market with clients Pamela and John Weber. Good to see you two this morning.
Thank you, you too.
So, Bryan, you want to lay this out for us, how you came in contact with the Webers?
I did. I came in contact with them through previous clients, and Pamela called me almost a year ago now, and we set up an appointment and met, and it's been true love ever since.
Well, you folks, and I really appreciate you coming in and chatting with us this morning because you're going through a divorce. You're separated right now, and you decided at some point, I guess, what, it was the right thing to do to sell the house?
It was the right thing to do. It was more than either one of us could afford or choose to afford on our own, and it was upside down with the market the way it is. Met with Bryan. He said, absolutely, we'll take care of you. It's in my hands, and he fulfilled.
So it sounds like, Bryan, it was going to be a short sale situation. You knew that going in.
Correct.
And again, we know from talking on this program that can be really complicated. So, Pamela, at what point did you start to think, oh my gosh, this is going to be a little trickier than we thought?
Well, we at one point actually had considered going the normal real estate route or even trying to sell ourselves, and then we realized that that was way beyond our capabilities. So once we found Bryan and put it in his hands, we became very comfortable. We didn't realize it would take as long as it did. We thought, 2, 3, 4, 5 months. Bryan negotiated on our behalf for nearly a year. But he hung in there for us and did all the work. It was out of our hands. He did everything for us.
Now, what was your experience with the bank?
Our experience with the bank is they were unreasonable, in my estimation. Bryan presented them with all sorts of legitimate, reasonable options, and they just would letter after letter after letter saying, we're not going to accept the offer, we're not going to accept the offer, we're not going to accept the offer.
Did you have a buyer standing by?
We had a buyer.
Absolutely.
Bryan had a buyer within the first 3-4 weeks.
And this is somebody, Bryan, that was willing to pay what you felt was a reasonable market price during a short sale.
Absolutely. They definitely paid top of market, actually. And
so you didn't go to the bank and say, look, we'd like you to take this ridiculously low offer. This is a market offer. And the bank said what?
They didn't care. The problem was the second. So this is why I tell people, you've got to be prepared when you're going to do these short sales. You can't, remember we keep saying like people are waiting, hanging out on the sideline. These guys came in the beginning and got everything rolling. Thank goodness they did, because look how long it took to get things wrapped up and put away. But it was a second lien holder that gave us the biggest trouble. Then the first, when we go to finalize it, after 4 months of pounding on the second, decides they were going to be nasty. But we did it. We pulled it off. I mean, it was, you have no idea. It was a very crazy. And they're the nicest people, and that's the part, I get really angry.
Well, I know this is where you get, really passionate about this, because you see people coming with what you feel are reasonable expectations, nothing out of the ordinary. It's just what the market is right now. And the banks seem to continue to not want a deal in reality here.
Yeah, when we called, John and I called at one point, I thought, I know, okay, that's like strategy number 974. This time we'll pull John, we'll bring him on the phone call. And we put him on the call with the bank, and that lady was, I'm just not going to say any names, but let's just say she was a demon. She was terrible. She was horrible, the way that she talked to us, the way she treated him.
And then, 5 minutes after we get off that phone call, Bryan has all the paperwork, so the banks weren't calling us. We weren't getting nasty letters. Everything was being handled on above board, and Bryan really protected us. But she called Pamela, 5-10 minutes later, and
after we had just had this
grilled
conversation.
Now, was the bank aware that you were going through a separation?
Oh, yeah.
And that you were trying to do this amicably and trying to work? Do you feel like the bank even tried to pit the two of you against one another? Is that what I'm hearing a little bit?
No, but I do feel that they got a little personal. At one point, they asked me about a car loan that I had gotten recently in a very accusatory tone. Right. And my husband had explained to them that we were a one-car family, and because of our divorce, needed a second car. But really, I felt, got rather personal at that level.
It was very personal. So the gal from the bank talked to me and John. She accosted us about them adding on a car loan. Pamela needed a car. She gets done with us. She was miserable with me and you. She said, I'll have an answer by the afternoon. We already knew what the answer was going to be. 5 minutes, 10 minutes go by, then I get a call from Pamela, who's in tears because of the way that this lady, she was horrible too. The gal was just horrible. So, but she called and was kind of accusing, well, you have enough money to get a car, you should have enough money to make your house payment. It's like, we have given you every semblance, every possible piece of documentation to show you their hardship, and now you're going to turn around and slap us in the face. Like, it's just very insulting. It's very
well,
insulting.
the bottom line here, and what I think I want everybody to be hearing from this conversation is whether your situation is complicated, as this turned out to be, and is drawn out like that, or whether you're just thinking about selling your house and you don't even know whether you're upside down in the house or not. Maybe you haven't even done an appraisal yet. You really need an expert to kind of navigate, and that's where we like to bring Bryan Garrity in. And again, you came to him through a referral. How do you feel about referrals now?
Absolutely.
I'd
We
refer Bryan to
refer
anyone.
Bryan to anyone.
Not-
Regular sale, short sale, buying, selling, Bryan will be there for you. He'll have your back. He takes a personal interest. He met Pamela and myself one time, and he just put his arms around us and said, I'll take care of you, and that's what he did. He followed through. The banks were going to force us into foreclosure, which would have forced us into bankruptcy. He had attorneys lined up for us so that we could handle all that, should that be the case. And at the last minute, he got us out of it
thank goodness.
and saved
Well,
us.
I'm sorry for your personal
Yeah,
situation
me too.
and so forth, but I'm certainly glad that at least this financial one is something that you've been able to work out with the help of Bryan. Bryan, let's ask people to call you
Yeah,
if they have any questions.
especially if you're sitting there thinking about it, pick up the phone. Short sale guidelines are changing, coming up here in a couple months. So do it now. Being prepared is key.
All right, folks. Again, thank you so
Mike.
much. Thanks
Thank
for
you.
sharing. And for more information, you go to san diego6.com. You just click on San Diego Living and get in touch with Bryan Garrity.